Morning, everybody. I'm not sure if Twitch is working this morning. Oh, there we go. Twitch now says it's online. It's thinking. This is a weird internet morning. I don't even have my glasses on. I'm like, why is the screen so fuzzy? Welcome to episode 57 of Coffee and Cloud Native. My name is Adrian Goins. Every night, I and my army of bots scour the internet for news and content related to Kubernetes and Cloud Native, and every day you'll find me here to share the bits with you that I find interesting. This is a curated list of content. I go through around 200 submissions every night, and I select just a few of them for the next day's show. These are the tools and the things and the places and the stuff and the whatevers that I find interesting, and I'm excited to share them with you. If you're watching live on Twitch, click the follow button for the channel. If you're watching live on YouTube, click subscribe, click the thumbs up button. If you're watching in the future, click the click the blah, 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 blah. This is going to get to where, like, it's going to be a 30-minute show with 25 minutes of me explaining what you need to click so that this shares. You know what to do. Just do it. Thank you. There is also live chat in everywhere, but there's a Discord server, and so you can join that. There's a free community site. In fact, let me start that crazy little news crawler thingy there. There's a free community site. If you join that, the conversation continues long after the live stream ends. Who do we have in the chat today? People are talking smack about YouTube. Yeah, YouTube today decided it wasn't going to show thumbnails. Oh, and yeah, I realized that my thumbnails are off by a day. It actually shows up that this is episode 58, but it's not. I don't know why I did that. Anyway, so good morning, Smalls. Good morning, Kinth. Good morning, Aaron. And Trix back watching on YouTube. YouTube for live streaming is fine. YouTube post live stream isn't fine. Whatever. I'm going to say whatever a lot. I noticed yesterday I was saying whatever all the time. I'm not going to try and like make excuses for YouTube. It's like I'm in a abusive relationship or something. Mo Grady, good morning from Tennessee. Good morning. Are you in a holler? We had a whole conversation. I had a friend of mine who was from a holler in Tennessee. I was like, what the hell is a holler? It was years later. He couldn't explain it. He's like, it's a holler. It's the opposite of a hill. It's a holler. And it was years and years and years, like 20 years, where I'm like, oh, a hollow, a valley. But then I had somebody else explain that, yeah, no, it's a place where you can holler from one place to another. Anyway, hello from Tennessee. Casimir, good morning. Wifebot, of course. Nice to see you. Frank, Ian. Where's Nuno? Devin, good morning. Trix is also from Tennessee. That's crazy. Good morning, Mose. All right, as usual, I have a way more stuff today than I can talk about in the amount of time that we have allocated. So we're just going to have to dive right in. Oh, I'm also sniffly today, so if I sniffle, whatever. Okay. Everybody thinks about Kubernetes and they're like, high availability. I'm in AWS. I want to be running in multiple AZs. And what many people don't realize... sorry, that's the sniffle part. What many people don't realize... No, I'm not flipping you off. Oh, speaking of flipping people off, did you see that poor bastard from the New Yorker? He thought his Zoom camera was off, and he started, doing stuff during a Zoom call that he shouldn't have been doing, and he broadcasted it to all of his coworkers. Oops. Anyway, multi-AZ stuff charges you for data transfer between availability zones. Everybody knows about inter-region data transfer charges, but a lot of people don't realize that inter-AZ data transfer charges are also a thing. Amazon AZs are separated by like 50 miles. They're still close with big fat fiber links between them, but they're different facilities, and they're going to charge you for that. Kubernetes is super chatty. etcd is super chatty. So you deploy this multi-AZ HA thing. When was the last time that an Amazon AZ went down? I bet a lot of you who watch don't even remember when it happened. I remember when we lost US East 1B, and it never came back. They came up with US East 1D. Like, I don't know what happened to 1B, but it was bad. I remember S3 outages, but Amazon hasn't had an actual AZ outage in a really long time. And so you start to think about how high availability in Kubernetes works. And I was talking to Casimir about this morning. etcd needs quorum. Quorum means a majority vote. So if you have one etcd node in each of 3 AZs, okay, you can lose one AZ, the other 2 will vote. But if you have like a proper network partition, there's a chance that you'll end up with one etcd in each AZ, and then you get no votes. The benefit of running Kubernetes with etcd distributed between availability zones, I think, is overrated. And you're going to pay way more money before you ever see an outage than what it would cost you to just recover from the outage. There are other ways to build it up. So that's my rant. I never build multi-AZ Kubernetes clusters because it's like people are just checking the box without really realizing that, holy cow, it's expensive. These guys. Who are these people? Grofers. Grofers scaled back from multi-AZ to a single AZ. Cool. But okay, so there's another thing about availability zones. Availability zones volumes are locked in AZs. So you can't even like move workloads from one AZ to another AZ because if it has a persistent volume, well, it's stuck over there. They're just whatever. So in consolidating from multi-AZ down to a single AZ, they ran into things like moving their persistent volumes back. Where's the chat? Trix remembers when AWS went boom. Yeah. Trix is old like me. Right, so they had issues. So migration to a single AZ, here's step by step what they had to do. Oh, persistent volumes, the bummer. Wah, wah, wah. But then they dive into explaining how Kubernetes works with EBS volumes, and then what you might need to do with like, oh, look at that, you can't bring your volumes back, and so on. This is a very detailed article. If you are looking to cut your AWS costs, the two places that you can do it, excuse me, sniffles, allergies, spring, whatever. The two places that you can do it are don't keep volume snapshots around. That's like the number one way that Amazon makes money. It's the equivalent of credit card late fees. And reduce your inter-AZ chatter. And you'll find that suddenly your AWS bill maybe is manageable. Anyway, whole article here, how they dealt with it, how they moved from multi-AZ to single AZ. And wow, somebody just, what did Kent say? We use a single AZ model with AWS. Kubernetes gets very, very chatty and cross-AZ costs can mount up quickly. Yes. We found although AZs fail, it's infrequent. Customers understand Amazon downtime, for us anyway. The costs of the occasional AZ downtime are minuscule compared to our multi-AZ operation. If you build a single AZ Kubernetes cluster, you have to be prepared to light it up somewhere else. Because if that AZ actually goes down, then yes, you have a legitimate issue. Your solution for that can be GitOps to redeploy cluster workloads, recent backups, replication of database content to another AZ, and then practice a disaster recovery procedure where you can, like everything's down, you're offline. Ah, it's the end of the world, chickens running around. But practice coming up somewhere else and figure out what that time window actually is and how much data you might lose. And then decide if that costs less than paying for inter-AZ traffic all the time. You have to look at it, and I mean, there are people who are going to watch this who are going to be like, no, multi-AZ, we have to do it because we can have zero downtime. Okay, fine. But for a lot of people who are just building out stuff, they want to check the box because it seems like a good idea. The more complexity you have in your solution, the more expensive it is and the harder it is to maintain. Basecamp, okay, so 37 Signals created Ruby on Rails. There was a project management system that was really big for a while. I know some people still use it, called Basecamp. They created a lot of other stuff. They wrote a book called Getting Real, which talks about agile software development practices from a realistic standpoint. And it's things like meetings are toxic, scale when you need to, solve the problem that's in front of you. Things that when you read it are really, really practical. The book is still super relevant today. And for years, they ran Basecamp on a single server. They didn't build out all of this HA load balancer stuff because they're like, you know what, if it goes down, we can just like build another one over here in 15 minutes. And that's fine. 10 minutes wasted talking about that. These cats over at Smarkets improved Kubernetes monitoring. They were doing a ridiculous amount of metrics. Let's see if I can find that number again. Max cardinality per metric, 662,000. I don't even know what that means. Somebody tell me what cardinality means in the chat, please. Okay, 40,000 to 180,000 metrics per second during low usage. That's a lot of metrics. But apparently they ran into some issues, and they have some graphs here that I assume show stuff not working. And then they started looking at how they can fix this. And they looked at some stuff. We hear about Thanos, which is like a multi-HA Prometheus thing. I hadn't heard of Cortex. I just went straight for what they chose, which was Victoria Metrics. Anybody ever heard of Victoria Metrics? Not me. I've never heard of this. I love putting show content together because I like to think that I know a lot about a lot, or maybe a little about a lot. Or a lot about a little? No. I know a little about a lot. And I still regularly find things where I'm like, what the heck is that? Victoria Metrics is like a super, super crazy, lightning fast time series database system that speaks every protocol. Look, logos. That speaks every protocol and is like supposed to be stupidly fast. High compression, lots of retention without having lots of expensive volumes, high ingestion rates. So these guys deployed that. Sniffle. These guys deployed that. Blah, 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 blah. Here's exactly how they did it. And let's see if I can find... Somewhere in here they had a thing that shows that like things worked better. Read this article. Super cool. Metrics. You need them. Amazon has a new T4G instance that's powered by ARM-based AWS Graviton 2 processors that deliver 40% better price performance over T3 instances built on the AWS Nitro system, a combination of dedicated hardware and Nitro hypervisor. Right? Sounds good. Okay. 40% better price performance. The T4G micro tier is free. Well, okay. Let me rephrase that. They have an extended free tier for T4G micro instances until December 31st of this year. 750 hours a month for a T4G micro. That allows you to run one instance for 31.25 days a month. Since every month only has 31, you're good. And it's totally free. So if you want to spin one of these things up, obviously, they're small. They're T4G micro instances. But what's cool about it is that this particular free trial is independent of other free tier stuff. So even if you can just get it. It's free. And our good friend Alex Ellis, hello Alex, showed that they run K3S great. So get yourself some ketchup, spin up some K3S, get yourself a free T4G micro Kubernetes ARM server, and start doing some stuff with it. Alex also has, I'm going to talk about Alex for a few minutes. No, not Alex, but Alex's stuff. Alex is everywhere. Alex is like, you turn around, you're like, Alex, you're in my kitchen. Alex, you're hiding behind my laptop. Alex, he's not actually that creepy. His stuff is so timely though, and I don't know if he doesn't sleep. I don't know if he's like taking the same drugs as Elon Musk. The dude is hyper productive. And he released a blog article a few days ago. It was the 15th, so a little less than a week ago, about how you can combine Inlets Pro with OpenFast Gateway to run a local OpenFast serverless environment in your home lab or anything that's not connected to, directly connected to the internet or doesn't have a persistent public IP, or you can't connect into it because you're triple natted like I am at my house. And so use the Inlets operator, which creates an Inlets Pro client, connect that to something out in the public cloud. The default instructions for Inlets show spinning up a VM that acts as like a cloud load balancer and funnels traffic back over a WebSocket connection to your internal environment. I keep covering the chat over here, and I sense that I'm missing something. Okay, we're going to shrink that window down. But this also works with, where is it? Did you know? You can create your own exit servers with Terraform, or you can host them as Kubernetes pods. So you don't need to have an instance out there, although I bet this works with a T4G micro. I bet. I don't know, just saying. So you can host this out there. And Inlets, all the other Inlets examples show using it for HTTP traffic, which you can get from the free tier, for TCP traffic, which you can get from Inlets Pro. And this is a blog showing how you can actually wire this all into OpenFaaS in a local cluster. Now, caveat, this does require Inlets Pro. However, you can get a 14-day free trial. And Alex does a lot of stuff. There's OpenFaaS, there's Arcade, there's Ketchup, there's Inlets. All of his stuff is very, very cool. So check it out. Take a look. Those are the two sentences that collided in my mouth to come out as Jake. That's it. We just created a new word. Jake. How about Cory Doctorow? Do you know him? Cory Doctorow. Oh my gosh. Nunca lo había pensado así. Voy a tener que ponerme a hacer la tarea, me parece. Huh. We have somebody in the chat speaking Spanish. Hola, Frank. Cory Doctorow is another one of those people who's like kind of everywhere, and he has a really interesting dystopian take on technology. He's a super technologist. He understands lots and lots of stuff, and he writes these novels that are they're completely fictional, but they have like one toe. Oh, hang on, stay on screen here. There, one toe in reality, and you can imagine when you're reading his novels that. We're going to get back to you in a second, Michael. You can imagine when you're reading his novels that these futures could possibly exist, which makes them ultra creepy and also makes them worthwhile reading for thinking about, like, not everything is rosy. Like technology is neutral. It is neither good nor bad. It can be used for anything. And there are bad people out there. There are lots of good people out there, but like, those of us who are good, we're just kind of going about our business and we're like, holy cow, some bad people built some stuff over there. I'm not prepared for that. When you get into civil liberties and surveillance and stuff like that, it's really easy for bad things to happen without anybody ever seeing them. I have no solution for that. This isn't a political channel, but he released a new book recently that is part of his... He has a world for Little Brother. He has two books previously, Little Brother and Homeland. This takes place in the same world, though it's not a sequel to those books. It's like a parallel story. It's a standalone novel. People have been talking about it online. It's got 22 reviews that say it's really good, so 22 people have liked it. Yeah, check it out. I like books that are... So when I was a kid, I used to read spy novels by spy novels by Tom Clancy. Tom Clancy. And I was a big fan. I like books that have like you could peel back a veil and there's that world, and it's just a mirror of our world where some decision was made differently and it all went sideways. There's a dude. Oh, what's this dude's name? Daniel Suarez. Okay. Just read everything by Daniel Suarez. Demon, Freedom, Kill Decision. What else have I read from him? Kill Decision, Influx, Change Agent, Delta V. I haven't read that one. Wait, yeah, we did read that one. That one was okay. Plausible, but kind of fell apart at the end. Demon and Freedom, you will not be able to put down. Kill Decision, Influx, and Change Agent, also excellent. So Daniel Suarez, he writes those kinds of books. Super cool dude. Let's close that window. Yesterday, we talked about metrics-based horizontal pod autoscaling. And metrics-based horizontal pod autoscaling. Hold on a second here. Richard pointed out that he uses Kada. Oh, I told Michael I was going to come back and talk to him in a second. Michael said, I just use dynamic DNS. I gotta jump back to here. Okay. Dynamic DNS will work if you have a public IP address that you can get stuff back in on. A lot of providers, especially if you're running something in your house, well, they just don't let inbound traffic. Here in Chile, my previous main connection, we have a dedicated 10 megabit connection now that has a public IP, and that's wonderful. But previously, my 4G connection from Intel was triple natted. Like, I kid you not. It's natted at my router. Wait, quadruple natted. It's natted at my router. Then it gets natted at the wireless router that connects to them. And then it gets natted somewhere else in their network. So triple natted. And on top of that, the egress IP is automatically rotated every 12 hours. And they rotate it by just dumping the entire state table. Like, that's their idea of you'll be in the middle of like something and suddenly, because they just dropped all of the connections for their entire network. There's zero chance that I can get something like that back in. A solution like Inlets will make a WebSocket connection out, and then since it's an outbound connection that then is reverse tunneled back, inbound traffic goes over that pipe, and my provider can't do anything about it. Dynamic DNS will not work in a situation like I'm in right now, where I'm dealing with idiots who don't know how to build a network. Let's get back. Let me tell you how I really feel about my cellular provider. They hijacked all DNS traffic. They refused to let any DNS traffic go to any DNS server except theirs, so they can do ad injection on NX domains. Hello, DNS over HTTPS. Lifesaver. So Kata. Richard popped up and said, I use Kata. And I was like, oh, I had Kata in the backlog. Let's go take a look at it. Kata, this is interesting. Horizontal pod autoscaling is reactive. So it sees CPU go up on the pods, and it sees CPU go up on the pods, and it starts to scale up more pods. Kata is predictive, and it's event-driven. So when I first saw this, I was like, oh, event-driven, like it sees some events and it does a thing. No. The examples, so the easiest example is imagine that you've got a queue, and you need to spin up jobs to process work that's in the queue. So Kata, in addition to being part of Kubernetes and like hanging out talking to the API server, it's also monitoring your queue, and it sees 1 million jobs come in, or 10,000 jobs, or it just sees jobs come in, and it scales up the workers that would handle those jobs, 4 at a time or some number at a time until the queue gets down to 0, and then it scales them back down. By being predictive, and that's what they call event-driven, its decisions are driven by the events that are waiting to be processed, not the events that are currently happening, which is pretty cool. They have a nice video somewhere down here that I watched a third of last night. Okay, I don't have time to watch 45-minute long videos to figure out like how something works. I need to get the information quick. So they've got this video where they show this happening. It can scale workloads down to 0. They say that they're not doing anything special. They're just interfacing between the existing Kubernetes structure and an external job queue. And then they have all these scalers that they already support. And Richard said that there's a bunch more stuff coming in 2.0. But yeah, I mean, cron and external and Kafka and just tons and tons and tons and tons of stuff. Including examples of how to set these things up with like RabbitMQ, Python jobs. I went and looked at that. So they've got all sorts of stuff out in their Git repo that shows you how to set things up. It's the guys that built this appear to work for Microsoft, so it's very Azure heavy, but it allegedly works with any Kubernetes cluster. Oh, do we have time? I don't know if we have time. Let's see. This, that. Okay. We're going to skip this, and we're going to go to here, because this links back to yesterday. Here we have an article from Janakiram MSV. He writes lots of stuff. He's a friend of Ranchers, and he writes a lot of stuff that shows up on the news stack. In this article, yesterday we were talking about Docker, and was Docker dead? And container engines versus container runtimes. And I thought that this article was poignant. Again, it came out yesterday. Like, how awesome is that stuff just happens like around the things that we're talking about? This goes one step further and says, let's also look at container operating systems. Now, he only brings up 4 here. Fedora CoreOS. Remember, CoreOS was EOL'd, so you're not going to get commercial support for it, but it apparently still lives on as a Fedora open source project. Cool. Talos from Talos Systems, Flatcar Container Linux from Kinvolk, and Rancher OS from Rancher Labs. Don't use Rancher OS. Rancher OS is fine, but Rancher OS is based on Docker. And Rancher is building K3 OS, which is K3S plus an OS that's immutable where you manage the operating system from within Kubernetes. It's still in development. You can go take a look at it. You can play with it. Don't put it in production because, I don't know, it's in development, right? Fedora CoreOS. CoreOS has been around forever, so we don't need to talk about that. Flatcar Container Linux from Kinvolk they basically took CoreOS when it was EOL'd, and they offer a commercial version of CoreOS where they've continued to do development of it. That's cool. And if you want to see more about them, come to the Edge conference that's happening tomorrow. We currently have almost 2,000 people registered for it. So this is a one-day conference, Computing on the Edge with Kubernetes, and yours truly has a presentation there. I did a special pre-recorded Coffee and Cloud Native at the Edge where I looked through all of the speakers and I saw that there were lots of people who weren't there for whatever reason. They didn't submit a proposal, or we just didn't have enough time for them. Actually, no, it was nobody submitted a proposal that I chose. So I didn't take people whose proposals were not accepted and talk about their stuff. In 30 minutes, I run through 10 or 11 different projects, from edge infrastructure to, well, all sorts of stuff. So that's happening tomorrow as well. This is free. Come check it out. Back over here. Flatcar Container Linux, Kinvolk will be there. Talos is not there, but we have had Talos on the show before, and I want to give them a specific shout out because during my 2-week vacation, basically the entire company got on a Zoom call with me for 3.5 hours because I was complaining that I couldn't get their stuff to work. And they were curious about that. I did show them some stuff that didn't work, and they fixed some bugs real time and released a new version that I could play with. And then I was able to get it up and running in Docker on my Mac in a local environment. I can't get it running in Proxmox because while they spin up stuff with QEMU, the Proxmox does a terrible job of like importing appliances. So that's one of the things that I need some extra infrastructure for to spin up a Talos cluster and actually start to poke at it in a real world environment. If you have infrastructure, I definitely recommend that you look at Talos. And also, interestingly, yesterday, they released a video showing how you can spin it up with QEMU using local registry proxies for caching container images so that you're not always like slamming stuff. Andre here was one of the guys who was in the call with me. Super smart, super cool dude. And he just walks through setting it up with QEMU on a Linux system if you want to spin Talos up and play with it yourself. I'll have that linked as well. And now we're on to the tool of the day. Tool of the day. Tool of the day was given to us. Oh my god. Ian, are you speaking Gaelic? Oh my goodness. Okay. Tool of the day. Wow, I totally lost what I was going to say. Alex Ellis told me about this yesterday in our conversation where he was talking about the dude is amazing. Okay, AutoCert. This automatically injects TLS certificates into your containers so that you can build an MTLS system with automatic renewal without needing a service mesh. So if you just want MTLS between your pods, here you go. It creates a CA using step certificates. So here's that. This is a CA and a way to very quickly create certificates that'll work for X509 certs, SSH certificates, and it's actually an Acme V2 server. It speaks the same thing that Let's Encrypt does, but you're running it yourself. Immediately when I shared this with somebody yesterday, their question was, well, why not just use Let's Encrypt? Because this is for communication between pods in your cluster. And you don't want to go out and register free certificates from Let's Encrypt because that's an abuse of their service. Nothing needs to actually use the real CA. Internal to your cluster, if you have the CA available, you can just run a private CA. And there you go. Now, there was a complaint that it doesn't currently support Vault, which is true, but so what? Because it supports its own infrastructure. Probably there's an issue to get it to support Vault, but it does everything that you need it to do without that. Their README is a beautiful example of wonderful, delicious documentation on how to get everything up and running. So you just annotate your pods with autocert.step.sm/name, and it picks that up and automatically generates a certificate. It injects it into the containers. You can use this for all sorts of stuff. The certs are injected in a particular location, var run autocert.step.sm, and they are automatically updated. You can set certs that expire and are renewed once an hour. You can have them at whatever life cycle you want. I love it. Check. Certificates. Hello, MTLS. Document. Check. MTLS inside cluster. And then how do you expose and connect to stuff from outside the cluster with MTLS? Check. MTLS outside the cluster. How do you delete all of this when you're done playing with it? Check. And then a whole thing about how this works. Awesome, amazing project if you just want some MTLS and you don't plan to use Service Mesh. Or if you're using Service Mesh in one namespace, but you need MTLS in another namespace and you don't want Istio managing that as well, or whatever your Service Mesh is. That is today's tool of the day. That's dude, if tool of the day is a snack, this is like a 4-course dinner. And they have a really cool logo. Okay, that's it for today. If you liked what you saw, Trick says, how's my mom's Service Mesh coming? Oh, it's very good. Yes, I figured out MTLS between the bedroom and the studio. My mom's Service Mesh. If you liked what you saw today, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitch, join the Discord, join the community site. Hey, that's still scrolling at the bottom. Cool. Follow me on Twitter. I'm all over the place. Links to everything that I talk about in the show go up in the free community site at community.cncn.io after the show ends. That's free. Community members get access to the links and the video replay a day before the rest of the internet. Membership is free. It's free. Did I tell you that it's free? Because you know what? It's free. If you have something that you would like for me to talk about, you know how to find me. Tell me about it. I'll put it on the show. I'll give you credit, shout out, because yeah, this is all about sharing stuff. Yay, we're 3 minutes over. I've given up trying to end the show on time. Thank you all for joining me. I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned something. I will see you in the next show. Actually, I'll see most of you on Discord, but I'll see the rest of you in the next show. Later. Have a great day.